What's up, guys? My name's Justin. Welcome back to our series of Planet Coaster. In this episode number 5, we're going to be working on the brake run for the inverted coaster. We're going to be working on the scenery and terrain work for the inverted coaster, and we're going to do some final touches on the entrance to our park. Getting started here, I decided to take this in-game building, use it as our brake run shelter. Now, in real life, you would need a transfer track to put your trains on and off of this track during the off season. Now, in my mind, this would be in this building off to the other side of the wall that I just put in there. So that's where you would normally have an extra train in storage, and where the mechanics would put the trains on and off the track. Now, technically, on our ride we're running 3 trains, so which means I would need 2 extra sections of storage track. So there would be 2 sections of track off to the left of our brake run. I'm only going for realistic, not realism. So now we're going to get started working on the terrain work around our inverted coaster. So because this guy's not super tall and we stayed fairly close to the ground, I wanted to bring in some natural elements to make it feel like we're going a lot faster than we are. So put in some tunnels at the bottom of our drop, put in some tunnels at the bottom of our cobra roll, raise the ground, lower the ground, we'll throw in some trees and some water coming up here. Now, when I put this water in, I realized that in real life, this water probably isn't just sitting here. It has to come from somewhere and it has to go somewhere. And so with that thought, that is going to change the entire look of the rest of this park from here on out. Because I had that water here, I decided it had to go into a lake. So I decided, let's put in a lake. Now, also, this works out for the better because I believe I said this before, but I want to keep this park on the small side. So as soon as I put this lake in, I kind of knew the direction I wanted this park to go. I want to keep this feeling like this park was built in the early 1900s around a lake in the mountains. They didn't have a lot of money. This would have been more of a destination park at the time. Now we move over here to the other side of this coaster, doing some more terrain work. I decided to raise it up so that we could get some more terrain interactions. Going through here, lowering down the train where the coaster is clipping with the terrain because we don't want to lose any feet. And after I do this, and looking at the scenery and the way I've got everything set up, being that this is kind of a forest on the edge of a city type feel, I decided to put in what would be like drainage ditches that you'd find in bigger cities. Reason being, we're in the mountains, it snows and it rains. I'm assuming we get a lot of water during the year. Now, with this section being raised from where the water is, it would have to go somewhere, and I don't want it to be eroding away at the dirt around the coaster. So I had to put in places for the water to go, which you'll see here in just a moment. Now, putting in all these quote concrete pieces was kind of a nightmare. It was a lot of fine tuning, but we eventually reached the look that I was going for, so I'm pretty happy with it. So here's where we start adding our drainage water to our lake. Now, my theory is it runs out of our drainage ditch here along the ground, and it has to join back up with our water So I took a look at the scenery, took a look at how everything was going so far, and figured in real life, if this was going on, where would this water run on its own? So obviously it goes from our drainage ditch to the lake, the first little lake we put in. So that means it has to go under our coaster, which I was totally okay with because that adds extra scenery and detail and more things for our coaster to interact with. Now as we get this little area fine-tuned, we add our water, we see how it runs over to the other lake. Now what I thought was kind of cool was if you follow the water, it runs from our little drainage ditch over to where the invert comes out of the tunnel, coming out of the Cobra roll, which now in real life would just drain into a hole in the ground. But if you look at it from overhead, it looks like it runs into the lake, so we'll stick with that. So now we're going to jump over to the other part where the ride runs through the ground, throw in another drainage ditch. I thought it'd be easy to just copy it from the other side, and I think that ended up being more work than necessary. So we'll go ahead and skip through a bunch of this and get to the good stuff. Now we got that drainage ditch out of the way, we're going to move over here to the end section of our ride. Got to clear out some ground so we're not losing any more feet. Now this section, I like the way it turned out. We're going to put in a little bit of a drainage ditch area-ish. I don't know what you'd call it. The one thing I really drove home with this ride, I think, was terrain interaction. Now by that I mean bringing the ride close to buildings, close to the ground, close to other objects. By doing so, this makes you feel like you're going much faster than you actually are. In real life, you would notice this, say, driving down the highway or down the interstate. When you're driving 75 miles an hour and you come up to a section where there is a wall next to you, especially if it's taller than your car, instinctively you will slow down because you feel like you don't have the room and that you're going too fast. And now in a real life situation, this is usually a lot of places where you'll find traffic jams start. But we use this on roller coasters to make you feel like you're going much faster than you are, and just an extra element of suspense and surprise. Now you see I'm putting in these brick walls for this retaining wall because I wanted it to blend in and match the other city building that we had put in there. That's one thing I like to do to keep my park theme going throughout the area, is to bring in elements from one section to the other. It just makes it look more cohesive and looks like it's all supposed to be there, instead of it looking like it was added 30 or 40 years later. So I went ahead and threw in this in-game building. Again, I wanted to block off the coaster from the entrance. I wanted to finish up the entrance a little bit. And again, more interactive scenery, more train interactions. I thought it was kind of cool because you're coming around those last little curves, up and around, and the last little thing you do is fly by a building and then into the brake section, which is in a building. Now I went through here and I decided to redo my little drainage area. I deleted everything I had and started over because I realized I needed to put a concrete floor in there, and the easiest way for me to do that was to attach it to this wall piece and then copy it around so everything was at the same level. And I think this ended up making this section look the way I wanted it to, for once, actually. I really like the way this looks. I think it's something that you would see in real life theme parks. the way that it's just concrete down there, and then I went ahead and threw in these little grates to look like drainage, because it has nowhere, the water would have nowhere to go. So now we're going to jump over to our entrance building for the station. I wanted to dress this thing up a little bit more, give it some love. So to do that, I decided to go in, add some borders, some trim pieces around the building, and I went ahead and made them blue, match the coaster station blue and white, roller coaster blue and white. I thought it worked. Fairly generic looking, nothing too themed. Now I figured, since I was dressing up the building a little bit, I'd dress up our entrance area too by by changing our pillars to the blue color. And I like it. I thought it drew everything together, so I kept it. And I was looking at my stairways and I realized that they were kind of floating over here. So I needed to put in a platform for the sidewalk or the queue to rest on. I went ahead and made it blue just because I'm not a huge fan of it. I may go back eventually and change it back to concrete color, but we'll stick with it. Now I wanted to make the building over here that is attached to our exit look like it is part of our ride, or that it was built at the same time at least. So by changing the trim pieces to blue, it draws everything together. And along the same lines, I wanted that building I added to the entrance to blend in a little bit better and match the theme that we already got going on. So I just went ahead and took a color from that turquoise building, threw that on the trim pieces of our brick building over here. So even though they're one's stucco, one's brick, at least our colors match, and it kind of pulls everything together. Now coming up here, we're going to finish off this building, and I'm going to jump over to working on the parking lot area and then more of the entrance of our park. So stay tuned and give me just a moment. Now the first thing I wanted to do was to throw down this fence because, well, I don't want people getting in for free. But besides that, we needed a fence off the coaster area because of, well, safety. The second reason I needed to do this was because this is going to really set in the boundaries that I want to use for the park. So where I put the fences is going to be parking lot. I went ahead and put in some sidewalks so I could get guests walking around. Now after looking at that building, I liked the building itself, I liked the way it looked, but I felt that it was too tall and it completely blocked all of the coaster, and I didn't like that because I wanted you to still be able to see it from the entrance. So I went ahead and lowered the building, and that just changed the whole dynamic. See, you can still see our inverted coaster back there in the background. Now I like the way this building looked because of the tunnel that you could walk through, so I decided to add that to the other side of our entrance to fully enclose it in. Alright guys, so that's gonna about do it for this episode. The rest of this episode I'm putting in all of our path work, covering up the ugly in-game paths and putting in my own. It's not the most exciting thing, so I'm gonna kind of show you some highlights, skip through it, and then shortly after that we're going to do a quick walkthrough of how the park lays now, because starting in episode 6 the park changes dramatically and I get super stoked. I started working on it and I couldn't stop, so right now I'm probably recorded through episode 11. I just have to edit it and put it all together. So I'm going to need a couple things from you guys. I still need A, a name for the park, B, a name for our inverted coaster, and C, a name for our wooden coaster. So go ahead and leave your name suggestions down in the comments so that I can see them, and I will use them in our park moving forward. Also, my next question for you guys is, since I have so many episodes ready to go out, would you like them being weekly, or should I do them more frequently? Should I do 2 or 3 episodes a week? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into our current walkthrough and see where we're at. Alright guys, we are back in our park, doing a little walkthrough. Here's our view from the entrance. I really like the way this is turning out. You got our wooden coaster off to the left here and our invert to the right of our entrance. I like the way that this is turning out. Everything's encapsulated right here. We got some restrooms over here in this building. I'm going to fill this hole in here in a couple episodes, so give me just a moment. In our main street, this is looking quite busy. Everybody's happy, plenty of business going on. Over here at our entrance for our invert, I like the way that this turns out. Lots of colors, very well grown in for a recent build. Over here on our wooden coaster, still loving our queue line and our station building. I love it being surrounded by all the trees here. Love seeing the coast or the chain hill peek up over the trees. Looks cool. So before I move on, my plan for this is I want to finish building up this area over here and this area. Get this all solidified, get a game plan, get this all in place before we move on to anything else. If you like what we got going on here, if you liked anything in this episode, don't forget, go ahead and leave me a like down below. Leave your comments for the name of our wooden coaster, our inverted coaster, and the name of the park in the comments so I can pick one and incorporate them in. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.